Hi, I'm Mike with Pro Irrigation Training. In this video, we're going to walk through the troubleshooting steps of an irrigation system that just won't work. None of the zones will work. The entire system is inoperative, right? So we're going to walk step by step through these problems, this troubleshooting methodology, I call it. And you may get frustrated if you're watching this and this is the first video in the course. As you go through all 10 of these videos, you're probably going to get tired of me saying the same things over and over, especially the first couple of steps, but I'm doing it for a reason, right? I want you to know and keep in your mind that these are the things that we're going to do. And if we stay on course in our troubleshooting steps, it's going to end up okay. And I've mentioned before in the introductory class, just don't follow hunches. Just walk through this, the step by step, and you'll get where you're going, okay? So the very first thing that we're always going to do is ask a lot of questions, okay? This course and all of my videos are coming from the standpoint of an irrigation technician that's going out and doing work. So we're talking about a customer here, a client. Ask a lot of questions. Has anything happened on the property? Has any cable lines been dropped? Phone lines or fiber optic, anything like that? A new drain line put in off the house? Anything that could give you a clue or at least narrow down where you're looking in the yard as far as damage that may have happened. And a lot of times you're just getting called out and there's been no damage and it just doesn't work and so forth. So one of the questions we're going to ask in all these scenarios is how long has it been off? Because this can really lead you down some paths of your thinking, right? If it's been off for 5 years, man, it could be a multiple of things going on. And if we're looking at a situation where the entire system isn't working, generally we're going to be looking for one common cause that's going to cause the entire system not to work. But never put it out of your mind that it could actually be all of the valves are not working at once simply because the system has been setting unrun for years. And this is something that we come up on regularly. I mean, maybe not commonly, but it happens that somebody new is moving into a house and renovating it. Maybe the house sat empty for a little while. So it's been a while since they run the system. So all of these things are going to help you in your troubleshooting, right? And always keep in mind that, especially in a situation like this, recheck your work. If you find something that's wrong and fix it, well, go back and make sure that everything is working, right? We were at a situation not long ago where another company had been there. The house had been struck by lightning. I think is actually the next door neighbor's house was struck by lightning. And so they came in and obviously the timer wasn't working. And the homeowner said, yeah, I mean, the timer was blown out and all that. So they replaced the timer, charged us, and left. And then the system never worked. Well, they didn't check the rest of it. I mean, obviously the timer was blown out or burned up or whatever. It's pretty easy to see when they've been struck by lightning or had a large, what's the word I'm looking for here, like an electrical surge that comes through it. So a lot of times it'll burn the terminal strip. But they just replaced it and then left and didn't check that the rest of the zones weren't working and it actually had burned through some of the wires. So always keep in mind that once you fix something, go back and check it because it may be multiple things happening at once. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do is go to the timer and just turn it on. Let's verify that the problem is actually happening, right? Turn on zone one and it maybe even click onto zone two later and check it as well. But just turn on a zone and go on a tour of the property. Walk the entire property using your eyes and your ears. You're listening for water gurgling, and maybe there's a hose bib attached to the irrigation system that's been left on, and so now there's just no water to power the zones. Be looking for all of this stuff and walk the entire property. Don't just do a quick spin around the house and come back in, but walk around, just take a few minutes and check everything out. And so while you're out, stop by your truck or whatever and grab your multimeter, and let's head back towards the timer. Okay, now we're going to do a timer troubleshoot as our next step. And I've got an entire video just on this step here. And it's really easy. Once you go through it a few times, you'll get used to doing a quick timer troubleshoot. And you're really looking for the voltages that the timer is putting out. Does the timer appear to be operating correctly? Check the continuity of all of your zones by using ohms, your resistance, to check and see what the resistance is in each of your circuit. All of that's covered in the video, and I've got a link down below to that video. But also while we're there in the timer, we're going to be looking for a couple of other things, okay? Number one, is it a Wi-Fi timer? Is it a new timer that has an app on somebody's phone? Most of the time, if it's shut off there, then it's going to reflect in the settings on the timer. But now there are a lot of timers that are coming out that don't even have a digital readout on the device. You have to do everything off of the timer, like ratio or however you pronounce it. And some of Rainbird's newer timers are coming out without a readout on it. I'm not crazy about that because it takes away a little bit of your ability to see if the timer is actually supposed to be working. But while we're there and we're looking at the terminal strip, we're going to be looking at the sensor terminal, remote terminals, anything like that, that we can see if there's a rain sensor or a moisture sensor attached to it. And if so, go ahead and unattach that rain sensor or whatever, and then check to see if the system works. It just may be a bad rain sensor or moisture sensor. So disconnect that and recheck. And if not, like we're looking here, is there a remote that may be connected in that's gone bad? And if so, if there's anything like that, just disconnect it and recheck. And then you can hopefully eliminate that as a problem. So we're looking at that. And one of the things that if you're dealing with a really old timer, and most of these old timers are now already been phased out and replaced by now, but there are still some older timers out there in operation that don't have a rain sensor terminal. Okay, so while you're out walking around and taking a tour, look up at the corners of the house and see if you see a rain sensor or anything that might indicate, a sensor somewhere on the house or whatever. Usually if it's a moisture sensor, there's going to be an additional little module that's attached near the timer. But rain sensors, let's say that you're working with an old Richdale timer, and this is something I've seen before, that we saw the rain sensor on the corner of the roof, but there's no terminals in the timer for a sensor. Well, here's what you do is you find, let's say the timer is in the garage, you find where the wiring is coming out the wall, or if it's just on the outside wall, go down and find the wiring bundle. And if there is a rain sensor on a timer that doesn't have terminals for it, then what they're going to do is hot wire it into the common. Now, this is a crazy deal. You may not ever see it in your career, but I've seen it a couple of times, okay? But I do a lot of repairs, so I see everything. But if there's a rain sensor on it, they're going to hot wire it into the common. They're going to use a normally closed rain sensor and put it into the circuit so that when it fills up with water, it just opens the circuit up and now the entire system doesn't work. So you may see that out there, but these are things to keep in mind and to look around for. Next, we're going to check our water sources. Now, on an irrigation system, there are two systems, right? There's the water part of it and there's the electrical part of it. So really what we want to do is try to eliminate one of them or try to figure out what the problem is. So our next step is to go to our sources. Wherever the water is coming from, a meter or a curb stop, or maybe it is a backflow preventer that's tapped into the house on a hose bib coming out. There's some parts of the country where that's the preferred method of installation, is that they're not plumbing from the meter out in front of the house at the street. They're actually coming from the house plumbing to supply that, and that's perfectly fine. But we just want to find out where those sources are. We want to check all the handles, make sure that all of our handles are open on everything. If you've got a meter key, put it on there and check and make sure that it's all the way open. If a backflow preventer has a handle that has disintegrated, which happens a lot, especially on below ground mounts, but sometimes these boxes will fill up with water and just completely rust and disintegrate the handle off. Well, if you're a technician, you need to keep a couple of extra handles on the truck to put it on the little nub and just make sure that it's all the way open. Because if there's been a backflow test that's done there and somebody did the test and then didn't open the valves back open, then that could be happening. And I've seen that before, especially when there's not a handle. And you see guys that try to get their channel locks or pliers and turn that little nub. Just use a spare handle and put it on there, right? And open it and make sure that it's open. Is there an isolation valve? Sometimes behind the meter or the backflow preventer, there may be a gate valve or a ball valve there just as another isolation valve. We've seen that. Sometimes that happens a lot in commercial systems, that you'll have various isolation valves throughout the system. But also, we need to know if there's a master valve. And when we're at the timer, that's really one of the things that we should look for there is the presence of a master valve. It's going to be on the M or the P terminal. When we look at the terminal strip here, there's always a place, or on most timers, there's a place for a master valve. And all that is a valve that's out at the beginning of the system. That's where it's supposed to be. That only opens when the system is trying to run, and it prevents leaks, ongoing leaks happening on the system. But if there's a master valve, that's going to be the very first place that we want to check. And if you see that, just try opening it up manually and then going back to your timer and turning the zone on and seeing if that corrects anything. And if it does, then you're going to need to rebuild or replace the master valve. Now, if there's no master valves, then we want to go and find at least one of the valves, right, and turn it on manually. And what we're doing here is verifying that there's pressure in the system, that there's water making it to the valves. And if you have a station master, which is a little tool that has some batteries in it that allows us to manually activate a valve, right, while we're there standing at the valve, we can put our leads on the wires for the solenoid and then turn it on and see if it comes on. Now we're checking the valve, and we're also checking to make sure that there's pressure in the line and water in the line. So what we're going to do at this point, like we're slowly but surely whittling away the things that could be affecting the water, right? And as long as we know that there's water making it to a valve, now we know more or less that it is an electrical problem, unless there's leaks on the zone valves, but there's probably not going to be a leak on every single zone valve. And then you would have seen that on your tour around the property anyway. But at this point, if you've got water pressure to one or more of your valves, almost certainly you have an electrical problem. So you should have, when we do our troubleshooting at the timer, we should be able to see if the circuits are open. It basically will read infinite ohms, just meaning an open circuit, or if it reads 0 ohms, it is a short circuit. It generally indicates there's something near the timer going on. But what we're looking for here is to see if we have entire circuits, and then if so, when we go out here and if we use our station master to turn the valve on, and it comes on, but yet it won't come on from the timer, now we know that we have a wiring problem. And usually if it's all of the valves aren't working, it's going to be the common. So what we want to do is look at the quality of the wiring. Is there grease-filled wire caps, underground burial rated wire caps that are, wire nuts that are on all of our junctions for the wiring? We want to check that, especially on the common. And usually what I do in this situation is just go ahead and cut the common open, and on zone 1 or whatever valve we're on, be checking it with the multimeter. And that way, you can see if it is the common, but also you're checking that particular circuit. So these are going to tell you some things, but if it's the common, then really what you're going to see is probably some corrosion on the connections, right? And if you see a dry indoor wire nut on an irrigation system outside, almost 100% chance that you're going to have corrosion on that wire junction, right? And generally, if I see that immediately, I just, first I make sure all the wiring is right. I know what everything is. Then I just start cutting everything off, stripping the wires back, maybe even scraping the outsides of the wires to get any corrosion off of them, rewire everything and recheck. But at this point, we've checked our water system to make sure that we have pressure and water flow going on, and then we've checked our wiring. So if it gets down to the wiring, it's probably the common, so we're going to make a correction to the junctions. But here is also the place that you're going to find out if you're going to have to rewire the entire system. Now, we have sophisticated tools that you can get or rent that'll help you find wire breaks. So rewiring an entire system, unless there's just been a major trauma happen to the system, that's probably not going to be necessary. I mean, I've had to do it before just because the wiring system was a mess, and I'm currently working on an industrial project where the system has been rewired 3 times. So there's actually 4 sets of wires that are going on out in the ground, and it's terribly confusing. But you'll figure that out at this point. And so it's somewhere on all of these instances here, you're going to whittle down and figure out what the problem